The longest delayed movie ever was directed by Kate Scotland and follows the events of Natasha Romanoff as she confronts the darker parts of her past, pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down. So guys, Black Widow, a movie that has been long awaited. Many fans have been demanding that this character gets her own solo movie ever since she appeared back in 2010 in Iron Man 2. So is this a case of finally, or is this a case of too little, too late? Now, Black Widow is definitely a character that I definitely do like, and I really enjoy Scarlett Johansson playing this character. But why we got this movie right now after, spoiler alert, her death in Endgame, this movie does feel like it's a little too late, guys. So starting off with the positives of Black Widow, I really enjoy Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of this character, and I really enjoyed her her character really getting the main focus instead of being outshined by all the other characters in the MCU. Being that this film dives in more to her past, you get this great family dynamic, which I do like, but it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's almost like you want to see more of them, but 9 times out of 10, this is probably the only movie that we're probably ever going to see these characters in. In my opinion, I think Florence Pugh in this film, she's definitely probably the best part of this film, and in some ways, in my opinion, she's even a more interesting character than Black Widow's character, Natasha, because she not only has some of the best lines in the movie, she's definitely the funniest part of the movie, and she has like some of the most should I say darker elements in terms of dialogue within the MCU. And if you're also a fan of gritty 70s 80s action spy thrillers, this movie almost feels like it's almost complementing those films instead of ripping off, because the MCU has done very good things when it comes to, you know, Ant-Man was a heist film, you got Captain America, which was another gritty spy thriller, you know, and then you had a movie like trying to say like Avengers, which was basically like this grand coming together story about heroes fighting villains and saving the world. So I really think like this film not only works as an MCU film, but if you want to pluck it out and kind of tweak some things and with the knowledge of people not knowing who Natasha is, I feel like this movie could work as its own standalone. Now, one element that I am mixed on is the humor. And in my opinion, I think Marvel hit its humor with Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Because in my opinion, that's still the funniest MCU movie ever made. But I feel like the humor in this one, this is a main problem that I had with a lot of MCU movies in recent years. What they'll do is they'll say something very dark, very serious. And then right when you feel like that, well, man, this is getting kind of deep, man. It's like, oh, man, the MCU is going into some not so child-friendly territory. They cut away to a joke. And that kind of annoyed me. Like the little scene in Spider-Man Homecoming with Nick Fury telling Peter about this. I forgot what it was. And he's explaining to Peter what this thing is and what are the disasters and what are the effects that can cause this. Every single time where you feel like it's about to go deep, they do this like little cutaway joke where people are constantly knocking on the doors and interrupting them. And in this movie, there's a scene where Florence Pugh is really talking about some dark stuff on paper, where they're talking about having a woman's uterus literally being removed from the body along with their eggs too. But the way that she goes about explaining it, it comes off more as a joke, and you shouldn't take this seriously, instead of being like, this is actually some very dark stuff. Like on paper it's dark, but the way they have her deliver it, it comes off as funny, and you should just think of it as a joke. And I'm like, Marvel, if you're going to go there, go there. Don't just hint that you're about to go there and then you just pull away at the last minute. In my opinion, that's not, I really just don't like that. And now moving on to the negatives. In my opinion, man, like, as much focus as the heroes get in MCU films, guys, the villains in this film, I definitely think get butchered. Specifically the Taskmaster, and we'll get into him in a minute. But then you have the main dude, I forgot his name. His character doesn't show up until the 3rd act of the film, and he really barely gets any development. You hear whispers about what he does to the girls as they're being dragged into the Red Room, what he makes them go through, how he tortures them, he manipulates them, turns them into killing machines, basically. But you really only find that out really until the 3rd act, where he really admits to doing all this stuff. And the Taskmaster, on the other hand, is even worse than this dude, because the Taskmaster just shows up here and there. Like, you would think the Taskmaster is the main villain because he's in all the marketing, he's in all the promotions, but he's barely in this film. He just shows up to mess up the works, similar to the Winter Soldier, what he did in Captain America 2. And it's bad enough that the Taskmaster really doesn't speak. There was only one scene that really felt like the Taskmaster to me, and that's when the scene where he's looking like this and he's studying all of Black Widow's move. That is Taskmaster. But him just kind of really not having a presence in this film, I'm just really not a fan of that, Marvel. And it also really doesn't help that when the Taskmaster finally takes off his mask and you see who it is, and they're like, this is the Taskmaster. This is who has been helping me the whole time. I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay. Like, that doesn't necessarily change anything. It's like, oh, well. All right, Marvel, okay. And also, this movie with Florence Pugh's character, as much as I praise her and I'm positive, she's almost pretty much like the star of this film. Almost like this is a giant setup trailer for her future involvement in the MCU instead of being a good little send-off for Natasha's character. She almost feels like a guest star in her own movie, which I think is almost a little bit disrespectful instead of being respectful. But overall, guys, the film is decent. In my opinion, this is definitely not top 5 MCU films. In my opinion, this isn't even top 15. And I'm about to say something controversial. I would rather watch Iron Man 2 than this film. It's not a terrible film. In my opinion, the most terrible Marvel film is definitely Captain Marvel. I used to think it was Thor Dark World, but no, it is Captain Marvel, because that film is trash. I refuse to watch that movie again. This movie is a lot better than Captain Marvel, but still, I would say minimize your expectations going into this film, and I think you'll have an awesome time with it. Black Widow gets a 5 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.